Okay, I've got exactly 38 minutes of disk space to talk about autism while I do my makeup. This is not all of my makeup. It's not even half, unfortunately. But I am who I am, and that's that. So I have to do some filming today for some of my favorite brands, but before I do that, I have to put makeup on. So I imagine this video is going to be most helpful for people who suspect that they are neurodivergent or have recently been diagnosed with ADHD or autism. So I was late diagnosed autistic last year, 2024. So it's been like less than a year since I've known that I've been autistic my whole life. A lot of it makes sense, but it's such a weird thing to, I don't know, it's just such a weird experience because your entire life has changed, but nobody around you's life has changed. Because when I came out about it originally, I literally feel like it was like when I came out as like bisexual to my family. I'm gonna try to show you these products as I use them, but it is what it is. Hopefully it's all in the description box, okay? Originally, I had been diagnosed with ADHD. The autism one was a little bit harder for, I don't know, my family to accept, or not accept, but understand. So I feel this weird need to justify my autism diagnosis. This happened when I was a kid. This makes sense. It makes sense that I'm autistic. I know I was smart and I know I got good grades and I know this and this and this. I just like school. I always have. So I always got really good grades, and I think that really threw off everyone because obviously autism has always been studied in boys and men, and the way ADHD presents in girls and in women is completely different than how it presents in men. I'm not saying there can't be overlap or some men don't present similarly, but the research behind it all is so male skewed that nobody even knows how to diagnose girls who are obviously ADHD and autistic, so putting some sunscreen on. I like this because it helps my makeup lay nicer because it's got a little grease to it, But so I've been going through this journey by myself, and it's really, really hard, and I don't really have anyone I can talk to about it because low-key other people in my family are neurodivergent 100%. But my mom doesn't. The more I talk about it, I think the more she realizes that she's got something going on. For me, it's helpful. The diagnosis was very helpful because then I could be okay, this is why I can't do certain things. This is why I have total meltdowns randomly. It just made so much sense to me. She's not like that. She doesn't need things to make sense. She just kind of goes about her life. I am a little bit more, I got a history with the grippy socks vacations. So for me, for my own survival, biologically, I kind of need to know what's going on up here. Otherwise, it gets way away from me. But anyway, if that is you, I'm thinking that I'm going to call this hot and autistic. You're hot, I'm hot. I feel there's such a discrepancy between autism as society knows it and autism as I'm experiencing it. I mean, granted, I would be classified as okay, if you're completely new to the community, might not know the term AuDHD. If you're watching this video, you've probably looked up something to do with neurodivergence, ADHD, otherwise you wouldn't be getting served this, right? So ADHD, autism, and ADHD together, that is, I'm so mad that they took away the term Asperger's syndrome. It's not in the diagnostic statistical manual that the United States uses for diagnosing mental health, conditions, disorders, disabilities. I don't have a mirror. Little baby tiny ones. So they took Asperger's out. For what reason? Are you guys out of your minds? We needed Asperger's. Because it wasn't autism. It wasn't ADHD. It was its own thing. Okay? Bring back Asperger's. God. I don't know if I'm just alone in that or if the rest of the community feels similarly, but that's where I stand. Anyway, calling it AuDHD. I mean, we don't have to call it Asperger's. Nobody wants to say, yes, I have Asperger's. Asperger's? No offense, Mr. I'm assuming it's named after somebody who discovered it in a way. Sorry, Mr. Asperger. Anyway, that's new. We'll go in with this instead. So AuDHD is kind of filling that Asperger kind of vacuum that was left, and that's what I would definitely say that I have, because I was diagnosed separately ADHD and then separately autistic later on, a year and a half later. So those two diagnoses were not from the same person. There's this whole group of people who have AuDHD or have ADHD and autism that presents in a way that's very high functioning, even though high functioning and low functioning they're not my favorite terms. And I don't know if they're anybody in the community's favorite terms. When I say anybody in the community, I mean neurodivergent people. So people with ADHD, people with autism, people with any sort of disability, and then also like the medical practitioners kind of in those fields as well. I just feel like there's this huge gap where nobody really knows like what resources to ask for, because I'd love to ask for resources. I'd love to get some sort of help with my crazy little brain and how it doesn't want to do some things and whatever. Because let's be real, it's very hard to like make a living and like survive and afford life right now in general. Much less when you are also dealing with a very late diagnosed kind of life-altering thing. Like this is not a small thing to get diagnosed with anything, really. But it's definitely not to get like autism. I'm 25. I was 24 when I got diagnosed with autism. What? 24 years old? You're shitting me. Like, what am I supposed to do?
How am I gonna get diagnosed? I can't even. There's nothing left for me.
What are we doing here? I don't know. And it's like, medicine has kind of failed us in certain ways, but so has funding, you know? Me personally, I need something to like fill the gap in my life where nobody else relates to this thing that's going on with me. And it's kind of become my whole personality, because how can it not? How can it not? Like, kind of frustrates me when neurotypicals will be like, oh, so now like autism's your whole personality. I just learned this hugely fundamental, like foundational thing about myself that I didn't know existed and I don't know a lot about. Of course, I'm going to do all this research. It's okay if you've been late diagnosed and you feel like it's completely taken over your life. Like, there's a mourning process after you get late diagnosed where it's just like, how did nobody notice? I could have been helped so much more this entire time. Like, I didn't have to struggle alone. And where do you go with that energy? Like, there's nowhere to go with that energy. Nobody in my life is like super keen to be autistic with me. So anyway, you and I are going to be autistic together, or ADHD, or a neurodivergent. I would like to talk about my experience. Hopefully it will help somebody else who's going through something like this, going through it, or thinking that you'd like to get diagnosed. The whole thing is like, it's insane and it's complicated and it's confusing. But I have just gone through like the first year of it, and there are all sorts of things that I'm like still confused about a little bit, and like don't know how to go about my life in certain ways, and I'm still trying to very much balance so many hard things about this like late diagnosis. So it's a very long journey that we are continuing to go on. I'm not sure these earrings are really doing much for my complexion at the moment, but we got more makeup to add, so maybe we'll get there. I think the issue that people have is like, we all have this expectation about what autism is and what ADHD is, and there's all these like stereotypes and stuff, and a lot of them are just like wrong or just based on like one group of people. So let me tell you a little bit about my autism and my experience, and if you relate to it, I don't know, maybe you'll get closer to the answers that you're looking for. But I kind of like to say that, like, you know that saying, it's like an ancient proverb or something, I can't remember. Somebody remind me in the comments if you know what I'm talking about, where it's like, inside of you are two wolves. Like, how I would describe my autism is like, inside me are two wolves and only one of them is autistic. I feel a bit like only part of my brain is autistic. I don't know if that's like acceptable to say, but the way I talk about my autism is going to be the way that I want to talk about my autism, okay? I will absolutely welcome comments of like terminology correction and your opinion about the things that I'm saying. But the way that I talk about my autism and my neurodivergence and my experience, it's just coming from the heart. It's just like that sense of honesty. So it's not really up for debate, but I'd love to hear your feedback. I have started sharing it a little bit on Instagram. People are so freaking wild in the comments over there. People will be so mean, so just like out of pocket, that like I'm not having a lot of fun sharing it. I was like, let me try YouTube. Let's see if YouTube wants to come on this journey with me. So I did not even try to cover that, did I? Somebody in the comments over on Instagram was like, you're not autistic. All these people pretending to be autistic. Hold on, let me read the comments. Yes, the new fad of acting like you're autistic. A couple of people afterwards commented like everybody's autistic and ADHD now. And first off, like, that's a valid argument. A lot more people are coming out as ADHD and autistic, but they're getting diagnosed or they're self-diagnosing, which is valid in its own way, because getting diagnosed in America, at least, I would imagine other places as well, it's an incredibly complicated process. And it's fairly inaccessible to neurodivergent people because it's such a complicated and multi-step process that takes months and months and months. It's like if you've ever looked up, like, am I gay quiz? Straight people are not looking up am I gay quizzes, okay? Atypical people are not looking up am I autistic quiz, okay? Nobody's going out of their way to get diagnosed with autism. You're not getting much sympathy. Nobody really gives a shit because autism's been around for so long, and I don't like, nobody cares that I'm autistic. Literally nobody has asked me, like, how can I accommodate your autism now that I know that you have it? Like, nobody cares how it changed my life, what I need, you know? Like, I'm not stealing resources from anyone, and that's what this guy was implying, right? So I responded with, people have always been autistic and ADHD. That's why your generation is half alcoholics. Because you know how so many of our, like, parents and parents' generation are alcoholics? And grandparents, a lot of them were just undiagnosed neurodivergent and got zero support growing up and had to learn to live in an atypical world that's not designed for them, and they turned to substance abuse to cope. Like, that's where the autistic people are. People have always been neurodivergent, okay? They just didn't realize it. Nobody realized it. People didn't realize that I was autistic, and I am one of the most autistic people I know. So anyway. But so we went back and forth, me and this guy. And so his thing was that he has an autistic nephew, and he was really worried and concerned that all these people who are coming out as autistic and neurodivergent are going to steal the resources that his nephew needs. And I was like, sir, what resources? Sir, what resources? Sir, what resources am I stealing? There are no resources. You guys are getting resources? I will be sure to look out for your nephew in the future when I'm collecting millions of dollars from the government because I'm autistic. That's sarcasm. That doesn't happen. The government has not given me a penny for being autistic. Really appreciate if they did. That would make my life much easier. I think I would have much fewer mental breakdowns because money is very stressful. And he was like, it's actually a huge conversation in the autism community that the spectrum has become too large and is now including people that are so low on the spectrum that they do not need treatment / are taking it from those that need. Again, nobody is going out of their way to get an autism diagnosis if they don't need it. Do you understand that? Disability on myself. That's what people see. I might see something completely different when I look at neurodivergent people because I think we as a community see that we are creative and smart and brilliant. But as far as autism as a label, this person who's fighting me on Instagram just sees autism as this disability label. And that's where I am just seeing like such a disconnect and such a problem. I'm not saying that people who are not in the community should not advocate for it because we all need to fight for the things that help others. But for you to like attack me about so I'm just like, buddy, I would love for you to tell your nephew that you think that he is low functioning. Like, just stop it with this language. He continues, my nephew grew up having to go to different schools for his autism, getting made fun of his whole life. This is why people who have the slightest tinge of autism, launching it like a trend, make me angry. My family dealt with the negatives for years, and to see people bragging about it as a badge is pathetic. Bragging about it as a badge. This was a comment on a video that I had made about not understanding why some of my friendships would end. When I was in high school, I had a difficult relationship with my friends and building long-term friendships. Had several grippy socks vacations. I've tried to not be here several times. Enough times that it's like, okay, clearly you're not very good at trying that because you've not succeeded. Thank goodness. Right. I'm at a different place in my life now. The diagnosis changed my life. If I hadn't gotten the diagnosis, I would still be so confused about why my brain felt like it was betraying me all the time. Like I wasn't good enough and I was lazy and I was all these things that just tore myself down all the time. So how freaking dare you? So I was like, there's a ton that I could say to this, but instead I'll keep it to, if you want the autistic community to get the help that it deserves, you need the slightest tinge of autism folk to come out of the woodwork and demand it. You have no idea how my autism affects me. You haven't even stopped your judgment train to ask. I'm sorry it's gotten too broad for you, but it's not about you, it's about us. Then he keeps commenting, I'm just doing all this because it's trendy. And that's when I just blocked him. I don't think we stayed on topic with this, and I'm not sure we talked about all the things that I wanted to talk about. I'm running out of SD space. If you think that you are neurodivergent, or you've been recently diagnosed, late diagnosed ADHD, or a woman with autism, I would love to hear a little bit about your experience. This is kind of like my intro to Hot and Autistic, that I would like to kind of keep this conversation going. Even if nobody watches this, I think just for me, I've got so much in here that is just tearing me down. And I think if I get it out, it'll spend less time being a burden a little bit. So we're gonna have a little rant space. I would love for you to be part of it. Questions, comments, anything. Subscribe. I mean, I post a lot of like beauty and fashion content. I have to do quite a bit of filming today, so I gotta skedaddle. Being your own boss when you are autistic is like, girl, I'd be giving myself way too many sick days, period. You're not alone, and you are completely valid, and I love you, and thanks for watching, and I hope you come back. Okay, bye. I only have a minute and a half of SD space, but I had to come on here to add that I have eczema. You don't know shit about my struggles. I got it on my eyeball. I tried to put eyeshadow on top of eczema right now. Don't say I haven't struggled. No. Okay, anyway, that was low-key satire, but low-key not, because eczema is a burden. Okay, goodbye. I only have a minute left, but I can show you the finished look. Hot and autistic. Hot and ADHD, babies. Okay, anyway, I have to walk my dogs. She's my service dog. Girl, she's not autistic. She's just bossy. Put your ears up. You don't even want to show them how pretty. Dude, there it is. Outside. Okay, bye. For real this time.